Extract is from Act 3, Scene 1 of Macbeth. In this extract, there are two main soliloquies given by Banquo and Macbeth. They bring out the themes of greed and ambition, royalty, fate, and they also bring out the changing personality of Macbeth. So the scene starts out with a soliloquy by Banquo. He talks about how he fears that Macbeth became king by unlawful means and was persuaded by the witches to murder King Duncan. He does this by saying that he fears that Macbeth played most foully for it, which is also a pun on fair's foul, foul, and fair's foul, foul is fair, which was said by the witches in an earlier act. The Banquo's ambitious nature also comes out while he says lines that are similar to those that were spoken by Macbeth previously. He says that if everything that the witches prophesied for Macbeth came true, then it stands to reason that what they said about him and his descendants becoming king would also be true, and he secretly hopes for that. And he secretly hopes for that. Then Macbeth and Lady Macbeth enter the court after this. We can see that they have we can see the theme of royalty here because they have become used to using the royal we and plural pronouns instead of singular ones. We can see this when they say, "Here's our chief guest," and it had been as a gap in our great feast and all things unbecoming. Macbeth's speech is also more formal, which is more befitting of a king, and his dialogue with Banquo is less informal, and it's not. It's more. It indicates a king speaking to a subject rather than two equals conversing. Banquo's speech is also more. What's that word?
Formal.
No, it's
submissive.
I think so. Yeah, it's also more submissive, and he says that he will carry out whatever wishes Macbeth has. In Macbeth and Banquo's dialogue, we also see that Macbeth tries to. He notices that Banquo is dressed up in a riding garb, and although he tries to make it seem like informal conversation, just casually asking where Banquo planned to go, we can see his great interest in Banquo's activities, because which starts to indicate to the audience that he is distrustful of Banquo and wants to keep him in close sight and under his supervision, because he's scared that the prophecy that the witches made for Banquo will also come true, and Macbeth will be unseated as king. So actually, also in the theme of royalty, we can see that Macbeth, now that he's king, he seems to have a lot more power and more time, which can be seen while he says that. But we'll talk about. He wanted to talk to Banquo about a subject, but he says that they can talk about it tomorrow, and he says this multiple times. Yeah. So in addition to asking about where Banquo is going and wanting to know what his activities are, he also asks about Banquo's son, because it was him that the witches made the prophecy about, him becoming king. So he also expresses great interest in Fleance, and he stresses on the fact that Banquo and Fleance have to make it back in time for supper the next day. Yeah.
5:46.
Yeah. After Banquo then leaves on his journey. Yeah, journey. After this, Macbeth delivers a soliloquy. He talks about his state of mind and his troubled state of mind and paranoia that Banquo doesn't trust him or is going to leave him and get as far away. No, and what? And paranoia about Banquo trying to unseat him as king can be seen from his soliloquy. He uses harsh and negative words like his fruitless crown will be wrenched with an unlineal hand, and it has put rancors in his vessel of peace, in his soul. He alludes to Julius Caesar, which was another play written by Shakespeare, and says that his own genius is rebuked by Banquo's, and Banquo being courageous and brave. He suspects that Banquo is going to plan a coup and try to unseat Macbeth as king. And he indicates his fears that Banquo's royal nature will force him to become king, and Macbeth will lose his throne. We can also see how Macbeth's character has changed. In the beginning, he didn't want to kill Duncan, and he was more moral and he didn't want to go on with the plan of killing Duncan, but now that he's done it and he's obtained the throne and the crown, the power that he now has is making him more greedy, and he doesn't want to lose this power, so he's becoming distrustful of everyone and is turning against his own friends. So he then this power and greed has also made him pretentious, because he challenges fate to a tilt and combat, and seems to he doesn't accept that Banquo's children will become king after him, and yeah, he challenges fate to a duel through a metaphor, which is come fate into the list and champion you to the utterance, which means that fate he will defeat fate in a trial and become the champion.